Over the pond to our very own Professor John Christopher Buer, White House correspondent at Real Political News. You don't always agree with him. Often he gets your blood boiling, but he has got his ear close to the ground in the capital in America, in Washington. And breaking news at the moment is that the affidavits have been released today showing the details of why they went into Trump's home, Mar-a-Lago, down in Florida. What do we know so far, Prof. JC?
Well, there are 38 pages, 67 confidential, 92 secret, and 25 top secret, which means that the secret is national security is at stake. Now, these were found willy-nilly, basically strewn all over Mar-a-Lago in different places. They weren't in a skiff. They weren't in a secure box or in a safe. And Donald Trump, we know what we know. Rob, you and I have talked about this for a couple of weeks. He decided that he's above the law. He'll take them with him to Mar-a-Lago. And you don't know what else he took, and you don't know where it's gone. We only know what the FBI recovered. And thanks to the DOJ and to this judge, by the way, who has decided it is in the public interest, as much the affidavit, to release this. And I believe that he released it also because there's been so many attacks on the FBI, on our government, and on the rule of law that he said we're going to release it and we're going to let it go out.
Can I just unpick that? Because,
Sure.
We have a sort of similar system here where it's not automatic that the application for a search warrant is released to the general public. The test, if you like, in law is that it has to be in the public interest. And just to be clear, so my listeners and viewers understand, the judge took the view, look, there is so much conspiracy and so much anger around the FBI raid, especially the idea that it was nothing but a politically motivated hit, that it was really important the public was informed precisely insofar as possible of the basis upon which the FBI decided to search the premises in the first place. And what this document discloses, again, forgive me, I know that you understand it's important, everybody gets a sense of it, is that it appears on the face of it that there was what's called prima facie evidence. It looked like there was some suggestion, certain evidence that Donald Trump had kept documents which were top secret and were to be held and kept only in a government building. That's what appears to be the face of the warrant. What do we know so far about what they actually took?
Well, I said there were quite many documents that were top secret. There's information about what went on and why Trump was actually hiding this information. Now, they didn't release anything having to do with the grand jury, which we know is standing by.
Yep.
And they didn't release any names of the FBI officers, et cetera, to protect them and their families. Now, since this happened originally, and since the search went in there, which was, by the way, as you know, a totally legal search,
Yep.
and it was not a witch hunt, and it was not a mob Nazi brown shirt event, like many of the Republicans on Trump's side are saying. It was perfectly provided with the approval of a judge. It went legally, and that's what they're trying to do. And the fact is that we shall see exactly what happens if there is even an indictment, or anybody who's involved in this could be liable. They also contain human intelligence and identities of individuals, which they did not put up, that was redacted. And, it could be spies in the Kremlin.
Prof. JC, can you help us out? Like, it's a really weird thing, I mean, of all of the things that Trump has done, obviously, I don't think you can dive into the mind of Donald Trump. Neither would I invite you to. I suspect, frankly, if it was you, you'd probably need an exorcism. But,
I'm a political analyst, not a psychoanalyst.
I get that, right. But trying insofar as you can to understand it, what would be the motivation for keeping top secret documents? It doesn't seem to make kind of political sense. But what's the point of it?
Well, some think that Donald Trump isn't as rich as he thinks he is. And as we say in the States, it could be do-re-mi. He needs the cash. And what has he done with this stuff? Who has he sold it to? Saudi Arabia, anyone? Russia, anyone? I mean, this is a very frightening thing for me as an American, and for you as a Brit and our dearest allies. I'm concerned that our governments are at stake, and the the security of our national relationship could be at stake.
So just to be clear, again, I never like rephrasing other people's things, but I want to understand everything that you've said. The suspicion here isn't just that he's kept top secret documents, and that's a kind of serious, to be sure, regulatory offense. Let's call it in those circumstances. You aren't entitled to keep these documents. But that the animus, the motivation behind them, may have been that he had some medium or short or long-term view that he was going to sell this stuff potentially to enemies of the United States. Is that a serious thought amongst serious analysts on that your side of the pond?
Oh, I would say yes. I mean, I would say that's what he's inclined to do. His relationship with the Russians and with the Saudis and his family. This is a, I'm not just throwing things out at him because I live close by and I've known him since he's a boy, sent off to basically a bad boy school, as the nuns used to call it. And he's a real problem. And he didn't have any right to this, Rob. This was not his. He was not the president anymore. He did not. You can't wave a magic wand and say this is no longer a secret document. He can't do that. There's a process. I was in government. I worked in government. You have to go through a process with all the intelligence agencies before you release anything, and they have to approve it.
Prof. JC, how do you respond to not just critics of this, but people that may not like Donald Trump, but say that justice hasn't or isn't being equally applied here? So, for example, the example they like to cite, and it's certainly an intellectually reasonable and valid one, is to say, Hillary destroyed Hillary Clinton, significant part of her server and kept sensitive government emails on that server, which she either kept, or we don't know where they are, or they were destroyed. Why so much focus and so much political and so much prosecutorial muscle against Donald Trump, but not the same applied when it came to Hillary Clinton? Can you see why people are dubious about that?
I can see why some Trump disciples are dubious about that. But Hillary Clinton was not the president of the United States, and she was a secretary.
She was a secretary of state.
Yeah, come on. This is not even close. And by the way, she lost the election because that was exposed by Mueller, and that was a real problem in her election. Now we're talking about.
Well, we'd have time to disagree on that, but I disagree. But do carry on, sir. Do carry on, please.
Well, she's not president, and she didn't win, and for all sorts of reasons. But the other thought that I have is the Rosenbergs, Chelsea Manning, normal people were not treated this way. They had access, but Donald Trump thinks he's above the law. We all know he thinks he's above the law. He was involved in so many things that you just follow the money, really, as they say, like in that movie. Follow the money. And there is Donald Trump sitting under the rainbow pot of gold and trying to collect.
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out and how Attorney General Garland, who, of course, is the more than de facto the leader of the FBI, the Department of Justice, is going to pursue this matter, and whether it ends up in a trial. If it does, it certainly, you would have thought, would have legally prevent Trump running, and then that opens the door, amongst other people, to the front runner in the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. It looks like Ron DeSantis. Now, I say Republicans, and I got confused there because they say a week is a long time in politics, a day is a long time in politics. We were talking less than, say, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I was saying to you, Prof. JC, it looks like a disaster for the Democrats. But at the moment, they look like they're doing pretty well in the primaries with 70 days to go into a midterm election. What's your prediction for those midterms?
I think you nailed that one. On Tuesday, we had primaries that went off, and they went off surprisingly well for the Democrats.
Right.
And I think, when we always, as Barack Obama said in 2010, we took a shellacking. People weren't paying attention. But Rob, every minute that you watch the news affects what's going on in the election, as you say, in 70 days. And the Roe v. Wade and the aspect of that being done has inflamed, especially women and the suburban women, to get out and vote. And that's what we saw on Tuesday, and you will see more of that. And now Biden is out on the stump with a little spring in his step, feeling that he can put down and talk about MAGAs as being semi-fascist. We all
Well,
know that
I'm not
fascists
so
are
interested in that now, but actually now
Yeah.
interesting to talk about the substance of the policy. And two things you'll be aware of here. You know, cost of living is a massive thing. Inflation, government looking at people, the abyss of millions of people not being able to afford to heat their homes. And I was interested in President Biden's policy, hopefully to be rolled out federally, of cancelling $10,000 worth of student debt, for instance. Looking at the poorest and trying to find a way of leveling up the playing field to give as much equality of opportunity as possible. Are there a buffet of policies that you've got across upon where you're facing high inflation as well that's going to enable the poorest to pay for fuel and to reduce their debt burden?
Well, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, some of his accomplishments are doing just that. It's deficit reduction matter, and also the chips issue, and being able, people having more money, and the college kids. It's for the youth vote. Absolutely, he needs to stimulate that youth vote, and he's been doing that. And there's no recession, it seems, and they're more concerned about inflation, and that's always a good thing, I guess. But we have similar problems that you do, especially with energy. And I think Biden is now feeling a bit confident, and in his own way, he should. He's been getting creamed. And his approval rate, I'm not here to support Biden.
No,
his approval ratings have gone up. And it's pretty interesting because people are paying attention, Rob. Right. They're really paying attention.
Well, a week and a day is a long time in politics. It's so interesting.
Yes.
You know, you think that, you're down and out for the count, and then it can turn on a dime, to use an expression from your side of the pond. Always fascinating. Professor John Christopher, you're a White House correspondent at Real Political News. Thanks, as ever, Prof. JC. This is Talk TV live from the Talk Radio studios.